Good morning. Get set up here. We can give it a minute or two if you want to just pop a message in and make sure that you can hear and see me okay. And just a reminder that this session is being recorded as well. Great, that's great. Thanks so much. Good morning, everybody. It's Declan. We'll just give it another minute and then we can get going. And anybody that doesn't make it anyway, there is a recording of the session as well. I'll just start to share out my screen anyway, and you can let me know then if you can see the screen okay. Think we may as well get going. And if anybody joins a bit late, they can catch up on the recording, or we've a little groundbreaker anyway to get going, and we'll see what happens. So good morning to you all again. We are here this morning to talk about Peak. It is the 18th of September. We are officially in the depths of Q4. And I know I was talking to some of you during August and July, and Christmas was already been mentioned and started to be planned for, which is great. That's what we like to hear. And I suppose there's a lot of variance around Peak. We'll hopefully cover a lot of aspects of it this morning. There is the pressure of stock, the pressure of resourcing, the pressure of, is there enough done? Do you ever feel like there's enough done? I'm not sure. There's always something on the list, isn't there? But hopefully today will give you a little bit of a plan. And some of you might have already ticked some elements of this plan off. And if not, then we're here to help you. And even if you're halfway through and you just need a bit of a sanity check, we're happy to schedule calls with any of you after this session. Either myself or Emer's not available today, but we will be here to schedule in any calls. I suppose like that, time is of the essence. The more you plan, the more prepared you're going to be. So hopefully that theme will run through today and we'll get you started off on the right foot. Just in terms of Peak, I suppose, look, it's no surprise to a lot of you on the call here. You're all hopefully very close to the numbers and your overall revenue and targets for the year. And for many retailers, about 30 to 40% of annual revenue actually happens in these weeks and within Q4. And I say Q4 loosely because I suppose there's so much happening within Q4. We'll jump into that in a second. I suppose some of the elements going around at the moment in the conversations we're hearing is that people are navigating uncertainty while also trying to seize the peak opportunities, which is always a constant balance, I suppose, no matter what time of the year it is, but especially at peak, everybody wants to make hay while the sun shines. And I suppose just, it can be make or break for a lot of revenues and a lot of industries, especially in the online retail world. It's core. I suppose a lot of our retailers as well would see most of our retailers are bricks and mortar and online, as most of you know. But there is a massive impact on online in Q4. They can be browsing and shopping in store, or they will just buy online and there's no footfall in store. So sometimes that's some feedback that we've been getting in recent years from our retailers, is that, online was very busy, but in store wasn't as busy. And I suppose it's all about thinking about that balance and making sure that you can plan for that when you're planning for this year. Have you looked back on last year? One of the core elements that I want to run through today, and it's a running theme throughout my slides as well, is that retention is the most important. I know as a team here at Magico, we're always telling you, yeah, you need to get customers to the website first, but you also need to retain them. And Peak is one of those areas where sometimes that can be forgotten about. You just think about the bottom line and the revenue. So let's deep dive into that today. In terms of Q4, as I said, it's not just Black Friday. There's a lot of things to think about in the coming weeks. There's obviously Black Friday is the 28th of November this year, which is a little later. Cyber Monday then will be into December. So most of your Black Friday figures might actually fall into December. So be very conscious of that as well when you're looking back at previous year's revenues. Look at it in a bigger picture. Remind yourself of when Black Friday was in those previous years. Because a couple of years ago was very early and now it's back to being late again. So it does shove a bit closer to December, and you will have your Christmas delivery cut-off time without even, it'll be there in a blink of an eye, and you'll be like, oh God, I feel like we just finished Black Friday sales. And then some of you here online will run some St. Stephen's Day sales as well, or promotions, or deals. So just being conscious of that when you're planning ahead as well. This week, actually, I know some of you are still working with MailChimp on this as an email marketing platform. Some of you have moved to Klaviyo. Email is very, very important for Q4. This was their recent holiday shopping unwrapped by MailChimp report, and I just found it really interesting. There's the early lead up in October, pre-peak sales in November, and then you have your peak sales, your festive phase, your last minute sprint, betwixtmas, which I love, and New Year. So this will give you a good breakdown of how you should categorize what you want to plan for Q4. And I just thought it was very interesting, so I included that here. Again, it might be a little bit small on screen for you, but we'll be sharing out a copy of the slides anyway. They'll be on our blog later this week. So I suppose it's just interesting. And another element that came up on that report as well is that a lot of people don't really want to shop Christmas in October, which is surprising in one way. As in, I think they don't want to hear about it, but they do shop Christmas in October, definitely. But again, just wanted to include this for you to have as a resource and to think about when you are planning your overall marketing and your overall comms and even internal processes as well. Jumping into 2025 then, I suppose there's always core trends that plan out in every year. For this year, there's a couple of different ones. I suppose in terms of your overall trends and the overall online e-commerce world, shopper behavior is so important when it comes to planning and essentially around peak. As seen with the dates and timelines discussed, you can see that, the feedback that MailChimp got from the research that they have done. So the trends this year, Black Friday lands late again. So think about that. Think about your resourcing. Think about your stock. Think about your promos. Nothing new there. You really have to remember that it is shoving into December, and that those figures will fall into December. And remember that when you're looking back on previous years as well, as I just said. It can be a challenging year due to unpredictable tariffs and continuous rising acquisition costs. So that's across the board, across the year. It's not just peak. I suppose margins are under pressure when it comes to that. Acquisition has to be done. You have to acquire customers. You have to get customers onto the site. How do you do that? Are you looking at those figures? What is the margin for that area? What is the cost of acquiring that customer, and how do you retain that customer? Again, retention, very important, and will be a common theme throughout today's conversation. Shoppers are even more value driven, and they're doing a lot more research before they purchase. So I suppose they research a lot harder. You will see as well another element that we're going to touch on today, and I suppose no new information on this, is that a lot of customers will want to hear from other people and they want that social proof, which you'll see down there as well. Is it's increasingly important. Reviews and testimonials will drive trust. So just after skipping the shift of mindset, I'll jump back to that in a second. But you know, I suppose there's a big element there that a lot of our retailers will notice that they have a core element of customers that shop all year round with them, and then you'll have a core element of customers that know your Black Friday sale is coming, and they will sign up to your emails and they will be the first on the site to get going. And they're very important customers, but remember them when you're planning your post-peak comms as well. So shoppers are even more value driven. So as I said, they're doing a lot more research before they purchase. They're going off your social media influencers. You know, we see an awful lot of influence of online shopping coming from Instagram and TikTok these days, which is also very, very important. And people will go to Google, they'll go to AI, which I'll touch on again in a second, and they will research before they purchase now. There is a shift in mindset, definitely. Buyers want relationships, not just transactions. I also see an importance there based on Irish retailers. We see an awful lot of conversations happening online of customers want to spend more with Irish retailers. That is also very important around peak. While you still have the likes of Amazon being highly competitive, you have a cohort of Irish consumers that really want to spend on the island of Ireland to Irish retailers and suppliers. As I mentioned there just earlier, AI shopping assistants are completely on the rise. Consumers lean on AI for research and comparisons. I'm guilty of it myself. I'm sure some of you here are as well. They're past the novelty stage. They're starting to trust AI. They want the short list of gift options. Be sure to think about that when you are planning your basics, which we'll touch on as well today. Optimize your product detail pages, you know, making sure that the tasks that take the most time are actually being committed to. So what does this mean for you? These shifts aren't just trends, and I suppose they affect your operations, marketing, and consumer relationships directly. So I suppose there's a big reality in peak. You know, customers know exactly what they want. They want fast delivery, they want clear communication, they want value for money. And that is why your customer is always happy. You know, that's what they want to get from. They expect a seamless experience because that's what big players, you know, have trained them to expect. And that's what you have trained them to expect in previous years as well, for those of you that are legacy retailers here on the call this morning. Well, what does that mean then for you? Like many retailers will still feel unsure. They're juggling a lot of stock issues. Again, tariffs might be impacting you. There's rising ad costs, which is massive, especially for a lot of Irish retailers because it's a small island, you know, competing against each other. Staff shortages is something that we've come up against a lot, and hearing a lot of feedback from our retailers that it's very hard to get a good team. You know, people move on, people are internally moved on. There's a lack of, there's a different cohort of teams members joining. And I suppose a lot of retailers are asking themselves, you know, can we actually deliver on all of this? And I suppose the closer the date gets, the more stressful it is. And the stakes are so high, as I said, you know, there's a lot of retailers that bank on this time of the year for increasing their revenue, their overall revenue. But I suppose the other side of that then, bridging the gap between the customer and the retailer, the opportunity lies in closing that in, turning that uncertainty into confidence. And I suppose it doesn't have to take a huge overhaul is the biggest thing that we're big advocates for small, smart changes. You know, think about really clear delivery times, think about bundling maybe instead of discounting. We'll touch on all of this as well as I move through my slides. And I suppose making it look as confident and as reliable to the customer as the customer already expects you to be or has already experienced you to be. You know, so I suppose just making sure that that consistency is there and putting yourself in the customer's shoes and looking outwards. So I suppose the big question here is, will you be the retailer that adds to their stress or the one that makes peak shopping a joy? And I suppose what I want to help you with today is that, you know, if you get this right, you won't just win the sale, you'll retain that customer for a long period, and they will become, you know, quite reasonably acquired cost-wise even. And I suppose converting the trends and all that thought process into action then, I suppose 5 moves that matter for you in terms of planning around this. Look back before you leap forward. Learn from last year's wins and misses. 100%. I say this all year round, no matter what the event is, be it a sale, be it a new launch. It doesn't have to just be Peak. That is core to what you want to do. And I know we did our webinar last month on analytics. If anybody wants some help around their analytics, please just reach out to us. Even if you want to email me directly, please do. I'm happy to jump on a call and just go through what you need to look at for previous years. I know some of our retailers here are new retailers, so may not have figures. So if you want a hand with anything in relation to planning for this, if it's just, okay, I know I was talking to a retailer recently and they're like, oh, we're not really planning on doing Black Friday. We'd like to do something, but we're so new, we're not really ready. That's okay. Just start small, have a base, have something to go off for next year and something to learn from. Profit over revenue, again, not new for Peak. This is the main trend for 2025 and previous years. It's always in the back of everyone's mind, but I suppose it's drilled down further into the team now and down the levels. I suppose the biggest thing to think about there is watch your contribution margin. Another element around your profit over revenue is if you're a department store, like some of you are pharmacies here online, and some of you are hardware stores, thinking about the different departments within your store, your physical store, your online store, where does the margin lie? What are the plans for promotions or deals or bundles that you have for those areas? Be clever. Value over discounts, again, you know, it's okay to think about bundles or, you know, adding in some extras like your free gift wrapping. I know it's a crazy time, but if you set up the process right internally, gift wrapping can be a really nice incentive. And I suppose like that, it doesn't always have to be a discount. It doesn't always have to be a percentage off. We have done an upgrade to our promotions module as well, which we'd be happy to discuss with anybody in more detail if you'd like to do that. There's some nice elements there that you can set up for that. Showing your best self at Christmas is really important. I suppose you want to, you know, make sure your customer service is at its best. Delivery is core at Christmas. And we'll touch on that as well. I know I'm kind of everything has a common theme of what I'm speaking of today, so I suppose it's I don't want to get into too much here when I know I have some more information on that. But delivery, customer experience, you know, what you'd do when it's not Peak, making sure that that still happens at Peak, and making sure that all your team members, even if they're, you know, part-time team members, if they're only there for Peak, making sure that they are all singing off the same hymn sheet. Stand out with personality. Again, nothing new here. A handwritten note, some quirky packaging, a surprise gift. You know, a lot of people might even just pop in a chocolate, a box of celebrations, separate them out and pop them into a couple of orders. Like something so small like that actually does make a difference. I have often ordered myself online from retailers, and just gotten my package and there hasn't even, like, sometimes there's nothing at all. It's literally just what I've ordered, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, you know, sometimes people kind of expect that little thing, and a lot of retailers have kind of stepped away from it, which I can see as well. Look, that leads back into your profit and margin too, but it's just something to think about, especially for Peak. Peak is more about more than just sales, and it's about long-term loyalty. So delight your customers, but also protect your profits. Too often, I suppose, retailers think of Peak as, you know, just a mad dash for sales. I need to get the best discounts. I need to get everything out there. But and you know, the revenue will spike, but I suppose the long-term thought process around it should be that the every customer that lands onto your website is an opportunity, and the way that you handle November and December will absolutely set the tone for whether these customers will come back to you in January and February and beyond, and into 2026 and further down the road. In terms of loyalty, I suppose it matters more than volume in a lot of instances. I suppose if there is a learning period there where you do have to get off the blocks, but loyalty should always be at the forefront in terms of planning for Peak. in terms of your customers, they're very overwhelmed with choice in terms of even on your own website probably. And a massive aspect of that in terms of them making a decision is that price isn't the only deciding factor anymore. And that has to be thought about, and that's where a lot of research will come into play there as well. That if they've ordered off you before, well and good. If they haven't, they may be a bit nervous, so don't be afraid to offer that little incentive. Have your welcome series emails set up. A smooth delivery is also very important in terms of thinking about loyalty for your customers. There's clear communication. I just see a question coming in there, so I'll answer that shortly as well. Stay clumsy, I'll answer that at the end if that's okay. A smooth delivery. If anybody else has any questions, please do feel free to pop them in as well. Thinking about communication around your delivery is very, very important. That will also build loyalty. And if they trust you during the busiest period and most stressful period for both you and for them, then they're likely that they will return and not be a once-off buyer. In terms of protecting your profits and building that loyalty, then think about everything we have just discussed. Deliver on your promises, delight with your extras, follow up thoughtfully, build out those email threads, and think about your customer service. It has to be optimum, especially at peak. Peak is like an audition almost, and it's it's the most difficult time of the year, as I said, for a lot of people. But if you handle it right, you want those customers coming back, and they will. That's one element of peak and planning for it and getting the thought process going and what to think about when you are planning. But I suppose the other side of it is we have to get practical, down to the nitty gritty. What do we need to do? The one thing I will say is do not overcomplicate it. Go back to basics. Optimize your basics. Make it easy for your customer to buy. Your product pages and your checkout are where the customer makes their decisions. If they aren't smooth, detailed, nothing else you do will matter. A lot of people will avoid doing some product descriptions for peak products. It is core to your peak products to have a product description on there. We do have the product description generator as well, which we would have discussed at the summit, and I have it included in a slide at the end as well, like a little checklist. If you want to go through that checklist and contact us, we will discuss those in further detail with you. So yeah, think about your product pages, think about your checkout, think about shopping on your mobile. We are all very guilty. I know when I was at the other side of the desk, I would have done everything on desktop. And sometimes we forget to check on mobile. So make sure you do that before peak. Make sure everything makes sense on mobile. Are your images clear? Can customers easily see stock? Availability, is the shipping options there? Is the checkout okay? Make sure that you go through everything. I suppose peak puts people in a hurry, creates urgency, and we need to make it as easy and simple and give them the most information that they need in terms of getting them to check out. Another element is like thinking about converting more customers, so turning the browsers into buyers. So getting the traffic to the site is only half the battle. That's your acquisition. The real win is converting those browsers into buyers. And I suppose like that, in the middle of peak, people sitting at home, like they have 10,000 things on their mind. Shoppers are easily distracted. They're trying their best to hunt for their deals, and they often have multiple tabs open. And you need to be the reason that you need to give them a reason to stay and look at your site, and help them complete the purchase. Urgency, we can set up some countdown timers for you. You can set them up yourselves. We can help you with that. Thinking about your last order dates, very important. Just one little thing on the countdown timers. A lot of people used to do a countdown to the sale. I'm not sure if that is the best process. I know some people have another opinion on that, but sometimes that'll hinder people buying. They'll be like, oh, and sometimes that just happens naturally anyway. But if you have a countdown to the sale, they might hold off. But look, Black Friday might be a little bit different to that because everybody is aware. And a lot of the time actually as well, just to cover off on the dates, like a lot of the time Black Friday sales and promotions will start well before that that Black Friday day. So that's also something to be very conscious of, and a decision for you to make. And don't be rushed on it by other retailers. Recovery emails are essential. You know, they're quick win. You set them up, forget about them, they'll trigger away in the background, and they're already talking to your customers and hopefully bringing them back. And not every visit will convert right away, and that's why they are important. Simple automations, and they'll remind your customer of the intent and bring them back without an extra ad spend as well. You know, it's very reasonable. It's within your paid fee to MailChimp or Klaviyo. And if anybody wants some support on that, come to us. We also have an AB Commerce abandoned basket email. So if you don't have it set up within your email service platform, we can do it through the website as well. As I mentioned earlier on in this session, shoppers trust other shoppers more than you. So don't be afraid to show that as well. That will also help turning those browsers into buyers. And just remember, urgency prompts action. And there's a couple of different elements that we can likely place urgency onto your website. Deliver with confidence, essential in Peak. Shipping equals customer experience. 9 times out of 10, if somebody is coming to you, it's an issue with delivery. You know, like if there's some problem with their order, it's usually through delivery. The big things around Peak is just be very clear on your delivery timelines. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Do the opposite. You know, if it's going to be later than your normal standard delivery times, just say that, you know, and then if it goes earlier, great. Absolutely communicate your cutoffs for Christmas early. Have them everywhere. Have it in your emails, have it on your website, just have it in store even, because a lot of people may physically shop in store but also shop online with you, so it's very important to have that there, and be generous with that cutoff time as well, because you know, very easily you can get caught out in timelines around that. Engage and retain. So win customers for life. Again, think about the loyalty. Peak is not just about a single sale. It's absolutely your chance to build relationships that will carry on into the new year. And I suppose, like I said earlier, again, if someone has a great experience with you in November or December, they're far more likely to come back to you post that, even for something that isn't on sale or on discount. In terms of winning your customers and engaging them, warm up early. You know, your email list is very important. Don't wait until Black Friday. Don't wait until November. You know, like, read the room, see what's happening. Are you ready to go? Warm up your list now with useful content and product teasers, reminders, you know, separate lists. If you want to do that, like, absolutely do that. Maybe not in September. See how you get on. Again, every audience is different. But a warmed up list will definitely engage with you a lot more than somebody that you just land into their inbox when there's 10 other Black Friday emails landing in there as well. Segmentation and personalization is also core, and even on and probably more important actually around Peak, because not every customer wants the same thing. Don't be afraid to segment your audience. You can do that on both MailChimp and Klaviyo. Again, if you need some help around that, let me know. And we can have a further conversation. I always get the question, oh, but that's only sending to 100 subscribers then. But out of that 100 subscribers, if you think about 50% of those actually wanting to hear from you about that brand, that product, that category, and maybe another 20% of those actually convert, then that's working out a lot better than sending it to sending it to a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand subscribers, and they're not reading it and not converting. So segmentation is very important. Personalization is important too, but I would definitely say segment. Delight with some personality. Add personality. Think about you. Think about your company. Think of your brand voice. You know, what way do you communicate with your retailers, and add a little touch. It'll go a long way to your customer. The other element around this is engagement creates loyalty. And I suppose loyalty is where the real profit lies, which is a common theme again throughout today. Loyalty and profit is is the big trends. And I suppose the great peak experience is very important. Plan ahead, essential, again, all year round, not just for peak, but it's definitely for peak. Optimize and don't revolutionize. Use a comms calendar. We have templates. If you need them, let us know. We might even pop those up on the blog as well, and you might be able to download them. Track your numbers. Look at your numbers from last year. Look at them weekly, look at them daily, before and after, during your peak sales. The most important thing that I will say today is walk your customer's journey before you map your strategy. Think about it if you were a customer. Have you purchased online recently? Have you noticed something really good? Have you noticed something really helpful? Have you gotten an email from somebody that you're like, oh, that's really clever. How can I adapt that to myself? Think about it like that. Think about you when you're a shopper. How can you bring that to your customers? And the biggest thing is that the small tweaks now are greater than the bigger fixes later. So make the changes now, add in all that extra communication around delivery. Make sure that you have add-ons on your products. Make sure that there's as much information about that product on the product detail page. Because if you get a phone call in the middle of Black Friday weekend from somebody, actually it wouldn't be Black Friday weekend because it might not be delivered. But if you get a phone call a week later, you have no more stock to help that customer out. You know, there's a lot of different caveats there, but it'll become a bigger issue. Whereas if you think about the smaller things now, hopefully you'll avoid a lot of that. Just in terms of some functionality then, so we have bundles, which have been live. So the top list, the reason this list is separated, so the top list is a list that is there ready to go with a long time. Some of you are probably using some of those elements already. So there's the bundling, the upselling add-ons, the stock warning messaging, related products, max order quantity, and out of stock emails. But in the last 12 months and maybe a little bit before that, we have improved and launched express checkout. So anybody that wants to kind of have a conversation around that, let me know. There's a couple of different caveats around who your provider is, but we can have conversations about that based on who your provider is. We have a subscriptions module also built in. We have an AI-powered product description generator, which will definitely help you on, I know, some, like, especially in pharmacy, and I suppose hardware would be the same. You'd have some elements, but there might be just some random bits that are going online and that you stock just for peak, and you're like, don't underestimate the power of a good product description based on SEO, based on converting your customer. So definitely use the product description generator there. We have improved shipping options, and we also have an upgrade release to the promotions module. I'll send some more information on each of those elements and links to more information on those after this call, but we would love to discuss any of those further with you, as well as implementing them into a plan for peak as well. Or if you already have a plan, as I said, that is fine. You know, we have a lot of retailers on the call this morning that are legacy retailers and live a good while. It's not your first rodeo, it's not your second or third, it's more. But if there's anything that you just want to refresh, or if you want, you know, just a conversation on it, or, you know, to just bounce off us, we're happy to do that. So in terms of your 2025 peak roadmap, I suppose the biggest thing that has come out of today, I hope, is that you'll see it's not just about chasing the sales, it's about putting your customer first. They're at the heart of every decision you're making. It's about protecting your profits while you're still driving volume to the site. It's about planning smartly so you can execute with confidence. As I said, small tweaks now beat the big fixes later. And most importantly, creating experiences that turn seasonal shoppers into loyal customers. And hopefully that has reiterated at home for all of you. Again, look, if you'd like to explore how these ideas can apply directly to yourselves, let's just set up a call and we can review last year's performance. We can, you know, have a look at some big opportunities and make sure that you're set up for a very strong Q4. So thank you very much. I'll leave my email on screen. Most of you will have it anyway. And if you want to pop an email directly to myself, or you can go through help desk, we're happy to set up any calls with you. We will have, as I said, a blog, and we'll have this recording as well for the session after today. I just see a question around Apple and Google Pay integration. So as I said earlier, it kind of varies depending on your provider, but I can have a conversation with you separately on that. If anybody else is wondering about Express Checkout, so that's the Apple Pay and Google Pay, we have it 100% both live with Stripe. If you're on a different payment provider, we have some live. There's just a variation there in how they go live. But if anybody is wondering if they're suitable or not, just contact me directly and we can have a conversation on that. If anybody has any questions, do pop them in. I see somebody is typing there, so I'm not sure if there is another question coming in there. So I'll just, oh yes, there. Yes, so we have some promotions, or we have some promotional changes done. But let's jump on a call on that. That is we can have a conversation about that. There is a couple of different elements it launched on that recently in the last 12 months. So it would be good to chat more about that and make sure that they are implemented into your overall plan, if that's okay. Anybody else have any questions? Great, just a response there from that retailer. As I said, look, please do reach out to us. Even if you feel like you're in a good place, we are happy to have a conversation in terms of your overall planning and like that. The functionality would probably be the biggest area, I suppose. Look, we didn't want to deep dive into the elements of that today, because I suppose it's individual to every one of you and not all of it is applicable to everybody. So I didn't want to hold you on the call for an extra period. If there are no more questions, I will end the session there. Again, as always, if you have any feedback at all on today, we'd be happy to hear it. You can send it directly, or again, you can send it through help desk. Hopefully you have some core takeaways from today and that you will all have a fantastic peak. But hopefully I'll be speaking to you before you get into the depths of it anyway. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.